I've got a massive stack of speakers behind me. I did a live stream here a few months ago, and
okay.
Yeah, it was for that. Yeah, man, it's been a long time.
Dude, it's been forever. Well, and I don't know. I mean, have you and I ever actually like talked on the phone or anything?
No, but I remember we used to chat online when I lived in LA.
Yeah.
In 2012.
That's about right.
Because we were both doing crazy fast, sped up moon baton type things.
That's absolutely right, man. Yeah, it's such a funny period. Like, doesn't that just seem like another lifetime now?
Yeah, it does. And I don't know. I mean, the music was fun at the time, but I really believe like what I do now is a bit more timeless. Like I wouldn't go back and listen to that.
Yeah.
I think house music is a lot more, got a lot longer lifespan. I'm glad I ended up doing what I'm doing now, basically.
Well, yeah, man. I mean, we'll talk about all of that for sure. I mean, I was just stoked to have you on, man. Thank you for doing this in the first place.
It's nice to talk to someone.
It's
been a lonely year.
Oh my God, you're telling me, man. I mean, how has your year been? Because I mean, for you, I mean, you just released the Boiling Point album, which is, I mean, that's a big deal for any artist. I think for what you've been doing, that's kind of like a benchmark moment. But then we're in this like weird time in the world, right? It
was meant to be probably the best year. And we had to cancel half the album tour because the album was coming out at the end of March. So we cancelled it. But it's a funny one because it's a bit like, it's a great time to release music as well as being a bad time because you can't really benefit off getting loads of bookings off the back of your album when there's no bookings. I'm actually doing a few things lately, outdoor things. But it's not the same. But I mean, it's got to be done. It's better than nothing.
Yeah. Well, when you say you've been doing stuff, have you been like, are there like outdoor shows that are happening over in the UK?
Yeah, so last Saturday I did a 200 capacity in a car park and everyone was separated in these little metal sort of cages. And then this Saturday I'm doing a bigger one with Jonas Blue, which is sort of more in the countryside up north. It looks really nice. It's got a stream flowing through it, like between the DJ and the crowd. And so that's good. That's great for DJs who don't want to interact with anyone because there's a river separating them. So, but yeah, that looks cool. And I think everyone's sat on tables. And then the Saturday after, a similar one down south. So yeah, I mean, people are starting to do stuff, but the winter's coming, so I don't know what that means really.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some of those drive-in
where are you?
shows. I'm in Washington, D.C.
Okay, nice. Have you been there was that where you were back in the day?
No, I've kind of bounced all over. I've been in D.C. now for about a year and a half. Before that, I was in San Diego. And I think back when you and I were talking, I was probably still living in Chicago back then. So I've bounced around a little bit.
I didn't actually think you were American.
Oh, really? Where did you think I was from?
Yeah, I thought you were French. I thought you were French or something. How weird is that?
Great.
Yeah, I thought you'd moved from somewhere to America. I don't know why I thought that.
No,
it's a long time ago, so.
No, I'll take it, man. I'll lean into that. That's great.
It was probably all the Jack Daniels I used to drink back in the
day. Are you off the Jack Daniels now?
I still have a drink, but not a lot. But I don't really drink Jack Daniels now. But I remember back in the day there was some great times at like Avalon in Hollywood and stuff like that. It was it was a lot of fun. I do miss America, but it sounds a bit of a mess right now.
Yeah, I mean, here in America, we've got kind of a perfect storm of, the pandemic mixed with Trump, which is its own nightmare. And, you're kind of seeing like the decline of the American empire right now. And so it's just a bunch of shit happening all at once. People are becoming much more aware of like the racism in this country, and it's all happening at the same time. So it's with all of it on top of each other. How has it been in the UK? What's the mood over there?
I think people are a little depressed, really, because it's just sort of dragging on now, and it's almost like nothing's changing fast. It's almost like it's getting normal now, and even when people are doing these events, a lot of people are like, "Oh, that's rubbish," sort of against it. And it's sad because right now I can't see them letting clubs open and people sweating all over each other anytime soon.
Yeah.
And my worry is for next year, because if next year suffers, it's a bit like these big companies that do all these big festivals, are they going to think, "Oh, let's do something else"? And, how long are people going to hang around and make no money? I'm hoping that next year because like Creamfields have put out their lineup for next summer, because that was cancelled obviously this summer. So the people look like they are expecting to do things, but the trouble is, the government don't care about this part of life, really.
Yeah.
They should do, because obviously it makes a lot of money, but it's obviously not their priority, is it, for young people to have fun?
Yeah, that's true, man. And I think in the States too, there's this Save Our Stages movement that's trying to get legislators to pay attention to what's happening to venues and to artists and all that, and trying to get them to, put something in the next relief package that will, specifically help out these kinds of businesses. And I don't know, man. It's a big movement here, but again, it's so hard to get the government to do anything, let alone pay attention to the weird shit that we do.
Yeah, I think people need to maybe start making a bit more noise, but then you've got people who are sort of against things happening too, that probably are into what we do, and they're like, "Oh," because I've had the odd comment as though I'm a bad person because I'm playing at these events, but they're socially distanced events. Do you know what I mean? They're not like illegal raves, because there's all that going on too, and that's another problem. There's people throwing these parties and that's bad for the industry, because we're trying to get it back on track, and then some people are just throwing these big illegal parties where if this virus is spreading, it's going to spread there.
Yeah, man. There's just so much going on. It's on the positive side, like you said at the start, I think it is a good time to put out music. I think people want to hear new music. I think people are excited about new things, like just anything new, because everyone's, stuck at home in their little routines. So I think putting something out there, being creative, you're right that it is actually a really good time for that. Maybe that's a good way to talk about the Boiling Point album, which is a really fantastic album. You've been doing the Low Steppa project for quite some time now, but this felt to me kind of like a leveling up kind of moment. Like there's so much music on there that has, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to, put words in your mouth, but to me, the album, like a lot of songs on there felt really timeless, really that sort of classic vibe, but without sounding like it was like a retro or a nostalgia kind of project. Like, did writing this album feel different to you than other things you've done?
The whole thing about Low Steppa is about trying to make it timeless. Like I just did the Essential mix as well, which is something I've wanted to do, like half my life. And it was the same with that. I want to be able to listen back to that. But I think the music that's inspired me is very timeless. Like Masters at Work or things like that. Still sounds amazing now, and I think that's the beauty of house music. It's not, because it is based on rhythm and that, isn't it? It's not based on some crazy synth that comes in and out of fashion. That's what I've always said about house music. So, but the album, it is, I'm really happy with it, because like you say, it is songs. It's not just like sort of 10 or 12 club records just chucked together, and it's like, oh, I've done an album, which I think is what sometimes happens. And I think it all fits together well, like one. If you listen to it all in one go, it works. And I think that's what albums are meant to do. Like, they're meant to gel, aren't they? So I think it turned out really well. I mean, some people said you're wasting your time doing an album. You don't need to do it. They're not right anymore. But it was something I wanted to do for me, really, something to tick off.
And that's a question, right? In this atmosphere of streaming platforms and people not just, listening to something back to front anymore. And the whole paradigm has shifted. But I think you're actually seeing more artists in our world coming back to the album format now. And I think there still seems like there's a ton of value in that, just as a public perception kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like you take an artist more seriously at a certain point when they sort of present themselves as an album artist. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that is one of the reasons I wanted to do it, because it just felt like it's something a bit more special, isn't it? And something you can really sort of promote, and I don't know, and I've had like quite a long time to play the tracks. I've been doing loads of live streams, really, to keep me sane as much as anything. And I've been sort of teasing the album for a while, and had a great response on that. And yeah, like you say, it just felt like it's nice to have something sort of that feels big to sort of put out there, rather than just, done a new track, and then you can keep getting remixes, and just you can just really sort of push it, I suppose. And it is it feels good. And I know some of the artists that I sort of have followed, like your Gorgon Cities and your Duke Dumonts, all these guys, they do albums, and for me, I felt like, I want to do that. Do you know what I mean? It's inspiring to...
Yeah, of course, man. And that's another part of it too, right? Is that I think all of us, to a certain extent, when we're shaping our own careers and doing what we want to do, some of that is just wanting to have the experiences of the people we looked up to at the start, right? Or our early influences. Like, it's, in some ways, I think I'll always be tied to, what I thought the big achievements were of my heroes back in the day, I
think for me, I mean, one of the first vinyls I bought was Daft Punk Homework, and that's how I learned to DJ, was mixing that album together. And so I suppose that's things like that is probably subconsciously why I wanted to do this. As well, like Bob Sinclair's first album, amazing, and I think I had an Ian Pooley album that was really good. I think so. I've always, the best artists have done these albums, so I think it's like you say, it is sort of stepping up, and hopefully I pulled it off. Do you know what I mean? So.
Oh, dude, I think you absolutely did. And it's cool to hear you talk about, the Daft Punk Homework album and getting that on vinyl, mixing that. I mean, let's take it back to those days. When did you start DJing? Because I have to assume you were a DJ before you were a producer, right?
Yeah, so 1999 I started, and I think I was buying a few different genres to start with. I was getting house, but it was like the sort of golden era of trance as well. I had a few bits of that, but now I fell in love with house through, I was listening to Radio 1, and Danny Rampling had a show called the Love Groove Dance Party, and that's what introduced me to stuff like, Bob Sinclair and Jazz and Groove, Masters at Work, all this kind of stuff. That's what I mean. Over the last 20 years, I'd sort of gone, like when I was in LA, I was drifted into music I never really set out to do. And it was that year, 2012, I kind of thought, I think it was when trap blew up, and I was in LA and I was thinking, this isn't me, I'm not interested in it. I think I went to, Did Mac were doing Tuesdays, was it at Cinespace or something? And I was there, and this guy was playing this record, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And I found out it was Shadow Child String Thing. And then someone, because I was in LA, and then one of my mates back home was like, "Yeah, this music's it's blowing up." So I was like, "I'm going home," and it was an amazing time for music. That was like Dusky, Shadow Child, Jujimon, who else? Hector Couto, Darius Sarossi, and there was so much amazing music. And I was just like, actually, I'd already started Low Steppa though. It was sort of lying dormant. I'd done a few bits, but that was when I really thought I'm gonna use that alias and get involved. I think 2013 was when it started.
And I mean, it's an interesting time to think about, because I think probably some people don't realize that you had, these other projects before Low Steppa, and that, it's that funny thing where I say this on the show all the time, but there's some famous quote about, it takes 10 years to make an overnight success. It's interesting to me. So you came out to LA, assumedly, because you were excited about what was going on in the DJ scene at that time. And there was so much going on. It was a crazy scene from like 2008 to 2012.
It was 2009 that brought me there. I got booked for I was doing this fidget house under the name Bass Weasel. And I got booked for EDC. And it was a whole, when you take a kid from England and you throw him into EDC and you got your own trailer, and it's like a different life, and it just blew my mind. And I fell in love with Los Angeles straight away. It was, and I think I didn't really go home. I think I stayed there for a while. I lived with John Pagnato for a bit, who was doing a hot mouth before he did, he went into LA Rights for a bit after that.
Oh, yeah.
And we hung out loads, and I just met loads of people like DJ Dan and Donald Glaude and AC Slater and all these. It was a really fun time. And I remember I played before like Diplo and Switch. We're doing Major Lazer, and I just never seen anything like it. It was a real eye-opener. And I feel sorry for whoever had to clean the trailer that night after we'd been in it. But yeah, that was a night I won't forget. But yeah, I just fell in love with America. And yeah, I sort of went back and forth a lot for a few years. And then I moved to, I think I did 8 months in Echo Park in 2012. But yeah, the music changed, and it went from sort of electro to sort of Skrillex, and then to trap. And I just found it had gone so far from what I wanted to do. And now I'm back doing the kind of music that I started off doing, so I couldn't be happier in that respect. Because a lot of the music I do, it's meant to sound like what I was doing back in, when I started buying records in 1999. And now I'm friends with people who were my heroes, like Roger Sanchez and Van Helden, and these are people I can chat to now, and it's amazing, really. There's a photo of me and Roger up here, actually.
Oh, nice, man.
Yeah, it's worked out well, and it's funny because it's sort of 20 years as well, which is, I think getting involved with Defected was a big thing as well, because it really helped me get to the point where I could play the right music.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about that for sure. And I want to talk about all this. You just covered a bunch of ground. I mean, moving back to the UK, I think is a significant point in this story, right? Because obviously that's where you're from originally, but I think it's also sort of coming back to the roots, right? Which has to be a hard thing to do when, like we're saying, you were in LA, you were seeing some success doing music as Will Bailey, right? Like you put out Ruckus with Valentino Khan, and that record got played by a bunch of people. And, even you and me, like we were saying earlier, like we worked on some songs. I've just looked and found our old emails of like us sending them to labels and being like, yeah, I don't know, I'll send it to this person, see what they think. And, so there's this energy and this movement. And then going back to the UK at the time, was that a hard decision to make? Did it feel weird to sort of, give up on something that you had tried and, take a different tack? Because I think for a lot of artists, man, once once people commit to something, I think it's hard for them to say, maybe this isn't actually what I want, or maybe something else would work better, you know?
It was quite weird because I remember I still had gigs, so it was nice that I sort of chose. Like, it hadn't completely fizzled out, if you know what I mean. It was like I just thought, this isn't what I want to do. And there were a few things that led to me going home. It was the music as well, but where I was living with my friend, that had come to an end as well. Like, I think he wanted to move his girlfriend in, and a few factors they just pointed to me going home. Do you know what I mean? So I went back, but it wasn't, I think I'd got it in my head that I was going to have a normal life and get a job, which is quite funny, but I was working in this office for a bit with all these like middle-aged ladies, and I think 2 months in, I got sacked because I was useless. Because I mean, how do you go back to that when you've and it was amazing because I remember going home and I thought, what can I do? And I started thinking, I don't know whether I should learn to be an electrician or do you know what I mean, or something like that. And then I started from the ground up again, like DJing in my home city, Birmingham, and I went back to playing for like £100 at these parties, and I built it. I basically hit the reset button and just started from the bottom up, and it's really nice because I got to see. Don't get me wrong, I know it wasn't huge what I was doing, but it did feel kind of successful at points in America, some of the gigs I did. And it was nice to experience that and then go back to the bottom and start again. And that's why I think I really appreciate this so much, because I've sort of gone back to like, you know, low fees and playing locally. And I think it was just... I don't know, I think it was quite, I'll say humbling, but I was never like, you know, some people have got an ego. Yeah. I was always down to earth anyway. And I think that's why a lot of people locally have stuck with me, because they know that I sort of did all that and then I came back and I was just happy to be involved and I built it up. So 7 or 8 years, and I finally feel like this year, even though it's been horrendous in ways, you know, I've released the album, done the Essential mix, I think there's a few other things. I've got an EP coming out next week on Defected again. So, I mean, in terms of that side of things, it's still been an amazing year. So, but yeah, it has been quite a journey. There is so much I could talk about over the last 20 years. I mean, I've had a few different names. So it has been, it's hard to think how one thing led to another because a lot of time's gone by, but I'm thankful of where I've ended up.
Man. And I mean, let's try to let's frame what we're talking about, right? Like, because we're talking about coming back to the UK and coming back to the roots and starting over. I mean, what are those roots? So you mentioned you're from Birmingham originally. What was growing up there like? Because I mean, I've been there, like I've played a show there, but I mean, I don't really know the city, and I don't know like what is the vibe? What is Birmingham known for in the UK?
Well, Birmingham's always had a bit more of a sort of bassy, garagey sound, I think. There was a lot of that sort of vibe going on. Like, I feel that a certain type of this bass house came out of Birmingham, like the Chris Lorenzo. You know, he was doing his thing years ago, and there was a movement. And the parties as well, like 231 was the big party at the time, and run by Tom Shorters, and it sort of celebrated that sort of bassy house sound. And I was going there, obviously after going home from America, and just experiencing that, and I was hungry again. That's the important factor. I was wanted it again. I was inspired. I was making music every day, every night.
What about when you were a kid? Before all of this, you know, when you were just growing up in Birmingham, what was that like? I mean, if you just think back, you know, musically, what was around you? What was going on at the time? Were your parents musical? Was there music in the house?
Yeah, so there was definitely a lot of music. My dad plays keys, and he was in Whitesnake when I was a little kid. Yeah, he played keys for Whitesnake in 1984 and toured with them. So I just grew up. I remember the big rack of cassettes, and so I got into music early. I remember I was really into there was like Prince cassettes, and my parents had Steely Dan on. I don't know if you know Steely Dan.
Of course I know Steely Dan. Come on now.
All the time, and that's like the soundtrack to my childhood, basically. And I got into David Bowie and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I was into Michael Jackson, I suppose most kids were, but for me, Prince was the one. So music was always around. So I guess I was sort of destined to be a DJ. When I was at school, I think it was about 14, people started passing around those tapes that were recorded from raves. That's what got me into DJing, because I was sort of fascinated by how the music was continuous, you know, and the songs came in and out, and I was just like, but there weren't DJs then. There wasn't like, oh, you knew a DJ down the road. Like I didn't know anyone with decks. It was a different thing, and you couldn't go on YouTube. It was nice. There was mystery about it all, and that's what sort of pulled me in. I think it's a lot different now, really. I suppose get a USB stick and you're a DJ. Whereas back then, I had to wash dishes in the local pub when I was 16 to save up for my decks, and I bought a few vinyls from the city, and I didn't even know what to do with them. It wasn't like I knew how to DJ. I just had to sort of teach myself. But it was it was all magical, I think, because there was a lot of mystery behind things, and you know, you didn't really know what went on in clubs, because they weren't like, you couldn't go on YouTube and get a video of, you know, Sound nightclub in LA and see what's going on. It was a different time. Everything's so accessible now, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I had a similar experience, man. I mean, I got my first pair of decks when I was probably 15, 16, something like that. Just a few different records. I didn't really know what I was doing either. And for you, I mean, I know you guys over there, you go clubbing a lot earlier than we do in the US. Were you going to club? Like, when did you actually see somebody DJ? Like, how did you even get the idea that it was something you wanted to do?
I started going to clubs when I was 17. You got to be 18. So that was always fun, wondering whether you'd get in. But they were more like commercial clubs, but they were playing really good music too. It's in sections of the night. Like you'd have like Spin Spin Sugar, Van Helden, and you know, like Tori Amos, Professional Widow, and those were the kind of tracks that would get played in that sort of in the section of like the dance music. But when I was 19, I went to art college, and there was a party. I think it was in the first week, and it was just in a pub, but there was like a back room, and these guys were playing off Technics just off the table, and I'd never seen. I was just fascinated by like seeing it up close, someone actually playing vinyls, and it was a really good little vibe. And I really think that night transformed my whole life, as mad as it sounds. There was like probably 30, 40 people there, but I was just like, wow. And it's the first time I'd heard more like underground music. I remember he was playing Crico Castelli, Life is Changing. I still remember it now, and I was just blown away. And that's when I went out and bought my decks, because it was just amazing to see someone like playing that kind of house music. And then I started hearing it on the radio, and I was just fascinated by it. I used to go to the record shops on my own and just get on the train and go into Birmingham, because I lived outside of Birmingham, and I used to love just going through all the vinyl. And I think, if I started DJing now and you go on to Beatport, you'd never get that magic you got then. Like going through like big like batches of records, and it's hard. You can't. It makes you feel old in a way, going, "Oh, it was so much better back then." But it was there was a magic. There was definitely a magic.
You're
and
right.
I still feel that now when I put a vinyl on. I went for a period of buying new vinyl, because obviously you can still get stuff now that's pressed. And it still had that same feeling, like when it comes through the post and you put a record on. But I don't know, I'm thankful that I came through when I did at the end of the 90s, you know, so I could experience that, and it wasn't all digital.
Yeah. And you're right that there was a magic to it. I think because it really felt like at the time you were you found a secret, right? And it's like it was this secret that you shared with just a few other people. And it really wasn't, I think the big difference between now and then is that, a kid who just starts off, like there are celebrity DJs now, and you can kind of see exactly how they got from point A to point B, right? And so there's this whole trajectory that's just mapped out, and you can look at it almost like a career path. Whereas when we started, at least for me, there was never a thought. I mean, I knew it was something I wanted to keep doing, and I wanted to do it as much as I could. But, there wasn't really any way to see what it was going to turn into, right?
Yeah, totally. I think that's what kept my hunger going for years, because I never thought if it was just a stupid dream. I think a lot of the time I thought it was. I was happy to get paid anything, really. I used to play 5 hours in these bars, playing like rare groove, disco, house, all sorts. And I think now kids can they kind of expect it to be a success, whereas I remember I just did it. I just loved it. I didn't even know I'd ever be able to do it for a living, let alone, feel like I've been successful out of it. So it was a lot different back then. I mean, when I started playing in bars, there was only a handful of people that were DJs, because I think an important factor is you really had to be dedicated then. You'd have to buy the decks. You'd have to spend a lot of your money on records. I think that's what kept it a bit lugging those 150 vinyl carrier bags on you. It was a different thing, whereas it's a lot easier now. So I suppose it's more appealing. I suppose DJs have become a bit more like important, whereas when I used to play in bars, you were stood in the corner and no one really gave a, no one really cared about you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, man. And it's weird because I feel like it's probably weird for people listening to this conversation to hear us say that we miss that, because hearing us talk about it, like no part of that sounds fun. Like spending a lot of money, carrying around heavy shit, no one cares about you, all of that. But then there is something about it going through that really, you wouldn't do it unless you really, really loved it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was totally my life. I remember spending hours in my bedroom just practicing, all day, all night. I really was obsessed with it, and I think it still shows now. I mean, I like to know where the music comes from. I love watching the documentaries. I mean, that one of the best ones. I love that. I think it's called Pump Up the Volume. You can watch it on YouTube. I remember I saw it on TV when I was a kid. But, seeing where the old nightclubs and about the Paradise Garage and the Warehouse and Frankie Knuckles, I was just always amazed by it. I think nowadays a lot of kids, that they're not so interested really in where it comes from, but I think it's mad, like the history of house music.
Oh, it's fascinating. Yeah. And I think it's so important I never try to tell people that they have to do their homework, because I think when you're young and you're a kid, you just want to be involved with whatever's going on. And I think I don't want to change that. But yeah, man, going back and looking at it, especially when you've dedicated your life to it, it's your passion, you can just learn so much more. And I think it makes you better at what you do. And for you, man, I mean, I'm curious too, as a kid, as a young man, just starting to DJ, were there people around you with the same interests? Did you have like a bunch of friends or a crew doing this? Or was this for you kind of a way to maybe not escape what you were doing, but, was this sort of an outlet for you that you just felt like this is something that the rest of what's going on in my life can't give me?
I think I had there was a big group of mates, Greek group for us, and we all liked the same music, and but no one else wanted to be a DJ. I was the only one, so it wasn't like I did it because I had a friend that was doing it, which makes it more special really when I look back, because it's a bit like, I don't know, it wasn't like I had someone I knew that I looked up to that was doing it. I was like, oh, I want to be like him. It was just, I don't know, it it was something I'd wanted to do since I was about 14, and then I think I got my decks when I was about 18. So it had been something I wanted to do for ages. But I mean, I didn't come from the kind of background where my parents would be like, "Oh, you want to do this? We'll go and buy you a set of Technics." You know, I had to go and earn the money, and I suppose I had to wait till I was like 18, so when I had like a little part-time job. But yeah, I remember. I think I was a bit outcast in a way, because I think my mates would all be hanging out smoking weed probably, and I'd be at home mixing Daft Punk's album together on my own. So I suppose it made me a bit of a loner in a way, but I don't know, I think a lot of DJs and musicians are a bit like that.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, it's we're sort of circling around these same topics, because I think when you find that, for people who have the kind of brains that are attracted to this kind of work and this kind of music, there's something about it, man. Like, I just stopped caring about everything else. And for you too, I mean, if your dad was a musician and a touring musician, do you think he got it? Were they supportive of you? Maybe they weren't buying you turntables, but I mean, were they supportive of you sort of really going hard on this passion?
Even though my dad's a musician, I don't really think they understood it really, because it wasn't something they knew anything about. I think it took them a while to sort of, realise what I was doing. But I mean, now they're super proud, but I think for at the start, they probably didn't even really know. And like I say, back then, it wasn't something, like I've got a friend and he teaches DJing, and he has like, 7-year-olds learning and all sorts. It's crazy. But
wow.
When I was growing up, you'd learn to play the guitar or you'd play football. You know what I mean? DJing was a different thing. And if you look back then, the DJs generally weren't even really that cool. Whereas now, I think it's something people go, yeah, I want to do it because I can stand up there and be the man.
Yeah.
So people are doing it for probably a lot of the time the wrong reasons. I'm not saying they don't enjoy it, but it appeals to them because of, more like they want to be the centre of attention kind of thing. And
right.
Whereas for me, I was just like being a loner in my bedroom. I just love music.
Well, do you like, I mean, this is a question then, do you like being the center of attention? Like, how are you with performance and being a public figure and sort of putting yourself out there that way? Like, because we've all had to embrace it and engage with it to a certain extent. Does that come naturally to you? Do you like that part of it?
I think I'm just driven by feeling like I've done a good set and people love it. And I do love getting messages off people saying they love my music, or I smashed it last night. I do love, to be appreciated. But yeah, I'm just sort of, I don't really know. I kind of try and switch off from a gig till I'm there in the moment. And I don't know, it's just so natural now. I just turn up and do it and get involved, really. I don't know. It's funny. I think it's just weird, isn't it now? I mean, your Instagram, it's all that is so important, and it's almost like the main thing. You're as big as you are on Instagram, or I don't know. It's hard to really explain the way it's gone, but yeah, it's very online, isn't it? Image but I just kind of get on with it. It's not something I think about much. I mean, I don't mind that side of it. I know some DJs will like moan about it, but if you don't embrace something and get involved, then you just look like a relic that's moaning about how it is now. And guys like, you've got guys like Roger Sanchez who've been doing it a long time, and they're fully into how it is now as well. And I think that's brilliant. And those are the people that survive.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And it's definitely inspiring to see people from generations of DJs even before us who are still doing it at such a high level. And to me, that just shows that, as long as you adapt to whatever the current situation is, because DJing, it's all about it's about discovery, right? And it's about that moment, the same thing we were talking about before, finding something that feels like a secret and then knowing that you can share it with people and that it might become this bigger thing. Like that's an exciting moment. And seeing even older generations of DJs do it, to me, that's super inspiring, because that means you can kind of do it forever, right? I don't think there's an age limit on it.
I think this whole situation this year was interesting, because a lot of DJs, I don't think they've live streamed, or they haven't really contributed much. And that shows to me that, do they actually love DJing in the true essence of it, or do they love getting paid lots of money, having a fancy rider, getting attention off girls, whereas like there are people that have done lots of, like, I love firing up the decks and getting do you know what I mean? I love DJing still. I love putting music on. And I think as well, a true test of a real DJ is, if you've gone back to someone's house after a night out and you stood in the kitchen, are you the guy that goes, have you heard this track? And if you are, to me, that's a true DJ, because you want to share music, don't you? You want to show people, and I think that's what a real DJ is. I'm that kind of person, like I'll send people a track on WhatsApp and I'll be like, you've got to listen to this. Do you know what I mean? I love that. Yeah.
To this day, man, I'm the same way. And you're absolutely right. That's such a great point, is that never goes away. No matter whether you're super successful or not, whether you've been doing it for decades or a couple months, it's still the same feeling. And you're absolutely right about that. And that actually makes me think about, we talked about, we're kind of jumping around, but we talked about, this moment when you left LA to go back to the UK and really start in serious the Low Steppa project. And I think what we've been talking about, this love of DJing and this love of sharing music, I think that's maybe instrumental to how people heard a lot of the early Low Steppa stuff, because you were doing these bootlegs of just songs you loved, right? And I think a lot of people probably heard like the Route 94 bootleg that you did that really blew up. And you did Deep Inside by Hard Drive, classic too, and a million more. And to me, that's that same love of DJing, right? It's just finding the songs that you love, sharing them with people, updating it, putting your perspective on it. Like when you started doing those bootlegs, was there a thought behind it? Was it just that same thing of just, I love this music, I want to share it with people?
I think I was just relentless. I remember I just churned out. I think with Route 94, that was simply the case of, it was a great record, but it needed a little bit more for me to play in one of my sets. But things like Deep Inside, it's so fun to find some of your favourites and, just mess with them. It's funny, I haven't done bootlegs for a long time, and that was, for a while, I think I was sort of known as that guy that was...
Yeah.
So it took a while to change that whole thing. But yeah, I think bootlegs, I'd say to anyone who wants to get their name out there, it's a great way, isn't it, to get heard of quickly, is to do. That would be some of my advice, I'd say, to someone starting out. But yeah, I think I was so in love with just doing the studio, and I suppose it's because I'd spent a few years doing music I wasn't really passionate about, so I was so fresh with that passion again of doing even just the drum beats, of going back to that kind of garagey off snares, picking the different drum sounds. It was a great time. Now it's a lot more like less music, put more effort into it, and whereas back then it was just like churning it out.
Right. Yeah. Just having fun with it. It's back to the roots, right?
I mean, I remember I was I was collecting people's emails on SoundCloud and sitting there literally sending one by one, sending people tunes. And like I say, I really started from the bottom up and built up a fan base really from nothing. But I did put a lot of effort into, I think SoundCloud was big too then. I think it was a lot of things, it's timing, isn't it? And the timing was great. SoundCloud was a great tool. I don't know if it's still And it was all about how many, like, if you'd had loads of comments on your track on SoundCloud. And I think that's died off a lot now. I think now for artists, it's a lot more, it's Spotify, isn't it, and stuff now. Things just change, don't they? And shift. I'm sure there'll be something new. But
well, so I mean, that's a question then is, do you think the changing paradigms, the platforms, going from SoundCloud to Spotify, before that it was Beatport, all these different things. Do you think about those kind of things when you're writing music? Like, how has your production process changed over the years? And do you think about, how it's going to be presented while you're making it?
No, I think definitely now artists are aiming more for Spotify, and I think a lot of people realise that you need to make songs at the moment. It's a bit of a waste making club bangers right now. I don't know, Beatport, it's funny actually, it is nice to do well on Beatport, but it's not something I massively think about. I think you could have a number one on Beatport. I don't think it's going to change your life anymore. It's nice to be in the chart, and I do like to be visible, but I don't obsess about, I think I've done quite well, and I'm not like someone who's always in the top 10 on Beatport. I don't think I've ever even had an overall top 10. Do you know what I mean? On the homepage, I don't think people should beat themselves up about that. You start off and it's like DJs that have heard of you and it's there sort of backing you. But I think to really move to the next level, it needs to be like, you don't just want to be a DJ's artist. You want girls down the road at the house party listening to music, or your music playing in the gym, like things like that I buzz off. If my mate sends me a video, my music's playing in the gym or your music's playing in a shop, I think for me that's more important now than thinking, am I going to go top 20 on Beatport with this release? But I'm not knocking Beatport. I mean, they're important, Track Source and Beatport. But yeah, it's I just mean it's nice when your music spreads to not just DJs, because Beatport is obviously for DJs, isn't it? So
Yeah. Well, I mean, what about you, man? How do you think your production and your songwriting has changed over the years? Because, we talked about how when you were doing the bootlegs, it was just about like pumping them out, having fun, not thinking about it too much. Now we're talking more about spending time crafting a song, that kind of thing. For you, has it been kind of a gradual evolution of your songwriting and your production? Or was there kind of a moment, like a switch flipped, where you really started thinking about it differently?
No, I think it's just had to evolve from... the tracks were a lot simpler, and it was just putting a massive bass line on it, and that was the kind of style then. And I think things have had to evolve into, more layers and melodies, and that's what again makes it something timeless, doesn't it? If there's a song, you could listen to that for years, couldn't you? Whereas the original Low Steppa stuff, it served a purpose, but it was a lot more stripped back and just straight to the point. So, but with the album, it had to be another level. It's the same with all the remixes that I do now as well. I suppose everything has kept, improving.
Well, I mean, was that hard for you, or was that a change in the way you thought about making music to sort of switch over from, just chunking a massive bass line on something versus, really thinking about like making a song?
Yeah, well, what it is as well, I mean, bootlegging a track, you get to play with their chorus, and it's a great vocal. So it's just really, as an artist, it's amazing to progress to having these amazing singers or songwriters, so you can actually have your own vocal, and that's where you need to get to as an artist. So you can you got it's actually yours, isn't it? You're not just like messing about with someone else's piece of music. So I don't know, it was just, I think So Real was the turning point, a track I did called So Real which was originally a sample, but then Kelly Lee re-sang it. And I think that just turned the Low Steppa sort of sound into more of, accessible to everyone, not just the DJs playing at after parties in Birmingham so I think it's just a natural progression, really. It got more, I don't want to say commercial, but I suppose, it has gone more commercial. But at the same time, the album's got tracks on that are deep and that I suppose some people would be like, oh, I'm not that keen on this. It hasn't got a full vocal, but it had to have a little bit of a mix on there for me, It has just been a constant progression. And I'm kind of glad as well, in a weird way, that I've never had that one record that went crazy, because I still feel I'm moving on a sort of, it's just a gradual progression. I feel that gives you more longevity, rather than feeling like a one-hit wonder kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And, that's, I think, a great way to talk about, where do you see yourself now? Where do you see the future, the next few years? Like, do you have an idea in your head for where you want to take the project, what you want to do with it? And, how do you feel about house music right now in 2020? Like, what are you excited about?
It's really hard because I feel I've ticked a few important boxes this year, and I don't really feel I've made any new boxes yet to aim for. But I feel like just working on new music. I don't know if it's like if I would plan to do another album for next year or just focus on a few singles. I think. It would be nice to have that massive record, but I don't think that's something you can plan, is it really? To have a monster hit.
No, you can't.
It's hard to plan anything now, because who knows you just don't know, do you? People are, do you think the clubs will be open in October? And it's like, well, who knows anything? So I think really just focusing on making, I think Boiling Point, the label as well, is something that's going to probably materialise, even though I've got Simmer as well.
Right.
I think Boiling Point, the label, just focusing on doing new music, really. And I do my podcast once a month, Boiling Point. Everything's tying in, really, is that. And then I do my Kiss FM show once a month. It all just depends on this virus, really, doesn't it? So
yeah, I think it's hard to make music in general right now because we don't know exactly what we're making it for right now.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people get inspired from hearing loud music and being in that environment. So I think a lot of people are probably struggling. I think a lot of people are probably feeling fed up, and because you can't tell from people's Instagrams how they're feeling.
Yeah. Oh no.
I'll give you. We put a post up yesterday with a picture of me smiling, and trust me, I wasn't smiling yesterday. Do you know what I mean? So that just proves it. It's like, I have days where I'm, really low days, and it's, it's been raining here for the last few days, and it's just, it's a proper downer. And you just don't. It's just a not knowing as well how long it's going to go on for. But I think the nightlife industry has been hit super hard because there'll be a lot of people who've sort of gone back to a bit more normality. But I don't want to say it's sad for there's a lot more than just DJs, isn't there, that are affected by it that you forget about, like the dude that does the lights or the bar staff, the doorman. There's so many people. It's crazy. But yeah, that's why I'm just focusing on doing music for now.
Well, that's good, man. That's a good way to probably take care of yourself mentally and emotionally too. That was, as we kind of start wrapping it up here, that was another question I wanted to ask you is sort of in this time, how are you taking care of yourself? And, how have you learned to sort of take care of yourself in over the whole career? Because, we talked about this can be an isolating career. We talked about, it can make you feel like an outsider, that you're sort of out of time with the rest of the world. Touring is a whole nother, mind fuck of a thing. Like, how have you learned to take care of yourself? What's important to you in terms of mental, emotional health?
This is something that you could talk about for hours, because I think it is very hard being in the music industry because it's like a roller coaster. I could go from one day to the next. I could have amazing news one day, and then something could happen the next day and I'm completely bummed out about it. And I think one of the key things is to not compare yourself to other people. And it's so easy to do that. Like, why aren't I on that festival? Do you know what I mean? Why have they never booked me for that? But they've booked him for the last 4 years, and his music is the same style as mine, and little things like that. And it is really, you can get so caught up in it, and you can be like, why do they get like all these Instagram likes? And, you know, it is, I mean, the whole thing, mate, if you get too caught up in it, it's going to end in, you know, you've got to learn to switch off, really. And I'm much better at that now, you know, and just you be happy for other people doing well. And, you know, it's, I think it is quite a jealous industry, isn't it? And, you know, like I say, you never know what someone else is going through either. You might think, oh my God, that guy's living the dream, but he could be on the verge of a breakdown. So you just can't focus on, you know, it's a mad industry. You know, you could have worked for all your life and not got anywhere. And then like Fisher comes along, you know, and just comes out of nowhere. And it is a crazy industry, but I guess it's like life, innit? Some people have a break and some people don't, but I think you got to work really hard. But yeah, don't pay attention really to what other people are doing, you know, else you'll go insane.
Yeah.
It is a shame because I've seen people who have had a couple of years where they've done amazing, and then you're like, I wonder what happened to them. And, you know, but you never know if someone might be happy sort of dropping off a bit, or, you know, it's but you've got to prepare as well. You need to, I think, to be clever, you can't ever take your foot off the gas. Like Diplo's a good example. He seems to never lose. He seems to always be up to something, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the right way to be. Like, he seems to work, you know, hard, doesn't he? He's always, I mean, I don't know what he's doing right now. He's probably dressed as a cowboy, sat up a mountain somewhere, but he'll be scheming something, right?
He just put out an ambient album today.
I saw that today, actually. Yeah, I follow him on Instagram, and that's what I mean. He's always, I suppose you've got to be relentless, haven't you?
Like, isn't that though, just being relentless, like saying you can't stop? Even that sounds stressful sometimes, you know what I mean?
It's hard. I can't, it's really difficult to switch off, you know. I can't, it's not like you switch off at 5 p.m, like in a day job, you know. There's always something to do as well. It's crazy. But I suppose the key is working really hard, and I was relentless for the last sort of 7 years, I suppose. I mean, you know, it comes at a cost, you know, like your personal life can suffer, or, you know, you can't be that guy that's going to be the perfect boyfriend to someone either. You got to be, you know, you got to be in love with what you do. So it is difficult as well for people around you.
Well, what's the most fun part of it for you right now? I mean, what keeps you here? What keeps you working and relentless? What do you love the most about what you do?
It is playing live, isn't it? It's the live shows. So I think that's why people have been so lost, because they're like, this, I don't know what to look forward to. Like, I had so much to look forward to this year. Like every Ibiza gig I was going to do, or Tomorrowland, Creamfields, all these things, and all that was taken away in like the space of a few days, and it was mental. Like, but I think I'm realising that it is, you know, it's exciting going to play somewhere tomorrow, even though people are meant to sit down at a table. It's just, so I think it is the live shows. And that's why it's so important that we can't lose live music. So hopefully our governments sort it out.
Yeah, I hope they do, man. I think we're moving there. I think it'll get fixed. And just hearing you talk about, you know, going back to playing some show for a couple hundred people sitting down at tables, you know, that you've done that before, right? Like, you took it back, you started at the bottom before. And to me, that's it's frustrating now, but that's also inspirational, because that to me means that you can always build it back up, right? And that we'll always, I don't think people are going to stop wanting to hear live music. I don't think people are ever going to stop wanting to connect with other people in a communal way. And in the end, to me, that's what we do, right? That's like the noble part of our job is, we connect people in this way. And maybe that sounds egotistical or high-minded, but to me, that's the beauty of it. And when I was a kid going out, I think that's the experience I was looking for. It was just that connection, right?
I think as well, I mean, I'm the kind of DJ, like you can tell that I'm enjoying it. I don't just stand there like a corpse. And I think that's important with what's going on right now. It's a bit like you need to be able to get a party going. So it's that aspect to being a DJ too. Like right now, if you're one of those DJs that's very sort of head down and it's all about the sound of the set rather than something to look at, it probably will be a bit boring for those people sat at their table. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. I think it is, if you're one of the DJs that sort of has fun as well, I think you can make these shows fun. Like the one last Saturday it was a really good laugh, So I think that cheered me up a bit, because I know that I can have fun doing these weird socially distanced events. It's not like I'm dreading it, thinking this is going to be awful, because it was still fun. You got to make. I kind of say, one of the factors of being a good DJ is almost making an event feel like you're a house party. So making a bigger event, make 200 people feel like they're in your living room and it's a house party and it's wild. I think that's what one part of being a good DJ is. Making it personal as well.
Yeah, making it personal. I love that you said that. That's exactly what it is. And I think that to take it all the way back to what we started talking about, that's where we come from, right? Is, it's all about just loving the music, sharing it with people. It doesn't really matter the setting, whether you're a celebrity DJ playing for 10,000 people at a festival or whether, you're some random person at a bar that nobody cares about. It's kind of all the same thing. And that to me, I think has been a theme in this whole conversation we've had. I don't know. I think there's something beautiful about that, man. I'm glad you said that.
I mean, I've developed it over this time as well, because I'm not the kind of DJ that would have ever touched a microphone before. But during lockdown, I've been doing these live streams and I talk to everyone. And it's almost like I'm reading the comments. And then last Saturday, I got on the mic and I just said hello to everyone, and like nothing over the top, nothing like 1, 2, 3, 4 on every drop. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? But just like I feel like I've developed as a person as well from this, and that gives it a nice personal feel. If you can just I suppose I didn't have the confidence to pick up a mic at an event unless I was absolutely off my face. Do you know what I mean? But I feel like I can do that now, and it's nice. I've always kind of wanted to do that, really. Not in a cheesy way, do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it does really make it personal. Like if you come on at a festival and you can pick the microphone up and just sort of say hello, it really makes a huge difference to connecting with the audience, because you've said hello.
Yeah. Are you a shy person?
Even though I do my radio shows, talking on public speaking is scary to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But now I don't. But I've overcome that. I don't care. So at least something's come out of it for me.
100%, man. No, that's great.
Being in America as well, all the DJs are always on the mic, and I kind of wanted to be able to do that, but I was like, I'm not saying anything on the mic. Do you know what I mean? Playing at night bass, and AC Slater would always, get on the mic, and I think it was really good. And it's probably helped guys like him, because it really connects you with the crowd.
Yeah. Well, and he's an interesting example of another person. Have you ever talked to him about this? Because he reinvented himself too, right? And he was known for different sounds and kind of found himself. I've had him on the show. We talked about, he found himself doing something that he wasn't that into after a while and had to sort of start over and reinvent. Have you talked to him about that?
No, but I do. I'm well aware of it, because I kind of started off as a night-based DJ when I was coming to America, and I had an amazing time playing for him at Sound Nightclub. But I sort of drifted away from that because my music just wasn't right for it. Do you know what I mean? But it's amazing what he's done, because he didn't even change his name, which is great. He's built a whole empire, and the label and the events. So, and it's great to see, because I don't know. I see him as one of the good guys, and it's nice to see that he's, it's paid off for him, because I think me and him have a mutual respect, because we both know we've put our time in, and it's nice to respect that, because some people, as I say, they come out of nowhere, and that's great, but I think he's really built this up, and fair play to him, man.
Yeah, man. And I think another connection with both of you guys too is that not only did you put your time in, but you really did it on your own terms. There was never like a giant hit like you were talking about. There wasn't that one mega hit. There wasn't some mega cosign from a famous person. Like I think both of you guys really built it yourself. And I think that's an important thing, man. I like to talk about those moments.
Yeah, because I think some people can get lucky, and like someone huge will be sort of take them under the wing. We've done it the long way, but hopefully that pays off as well, because you build up real fans, don't you, who are there for you. So
yeah, he's got his whole thing, and you attract people to you, I think, when you build it yourself, right? Like you're working with Defected and Armada and these legendary labels, and it wasn't because you had some big pop moment. It's because you built something organically, and over time, people start paying attention. I mean, I guess that sounds stupid to just say it that way, but that really is how it works. It's just work over time.
Some people, I suppose, they have a record on a key label, and that gets, like say you've been on Dirty Bird and had like a big tune on there, or Hot Creations. And I've never sort of done that. I built my own label as well, so it is hard. It is harder that way, but yeah, I wouldn't change it. So
and I think it's inspirational, man. I like talking to you about this kind of stuff, and just in general, man. It's great to connect. It's been so many years since we talked. Just on a personal note, man, I love seeing you flourish. I love seeing you out there killing it. The new album is really fantastic. You should be super proud of that. I hope you are.
Thank you, mate. That means a lot, man. And it is really good to catch up all these years later, man.
I know. It's crazy, man. Well, I'm going to ask you one more question, and then we'll get out of here. This is the last question. I ask it at the end of each episode. Just looking for a time in your life, a memory, a moment. It could be from any time when in a single moment, music really had a deep impact on you, really meant something to you. And it's kind of just the first thing that pops into your head.
So off the top of my head, I think I was playing a festival called Global Gathering. I was playing a remix I'd done of Born Slippy. That was as Will Bailey years ago. And I think that was a memorable moment, because even though I was first on and the tent was like half empty, I think that was an amazing moment. I think Mickey Slim was coming on next, and then Mark Knight. Yeah. That was the fest. That was that was quite a big festival at the time, Global Gathering. It's actually finished now, but that's the moment that came to me then. So we'll go with that one.
I love it, man. I love it. I mean, what was special about that moment? Was it just sort of realizing that you were there on that big stage, that you had made it that far?
It just felt like, I suppose it was a moment that it felt like this could happen.
Yeah.
You need some good things to happen to make you keep chasing it as well, don't you? And I think, being up there, that was incredible. Those were moments that, like, you do get. I think that's what drives an artist. It's almost like a drug, that odd bit of good news that comes along that you really buzz off. And like when I found out I'd been booked for that, I remember I got put on After Eight Prince once at God's Kitchen, and I was sat in an office job, and I got the email, and that's a moment I'll never forget. They're just magical moments. Like when I found out a few months ago that I had actually got an Essential mix. Do you know what I mean? all these years later, things can still be, they've still got that magic. And I think getting played on the radio, even though like you might have had loads of radio plays, things like that, they're always special for an artist.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think it's those moments, because each time you get those benchmark moments, it's kind of like you've just been on a ship, like in the middle of the ocean by yourself, right? And all of a sudden, you know, like another ship comes by, or somebody drops you a message, or, you know, somebody joins you for a minute. And just for those little moments, you get that verification, that reinforcement that you're not crazy, what you're doing means something, and that you're not kind of just doing it in a void, right?
The trouble is though, you're always chasing that high as well, which is a good thing, but that's what can lead to obviously sort of depression in artists, because you want that good news, you want that booking, you know, you want that gig, you want that person to play your tune on the radio. But yeah, it's as I say, it's learning not to be disheartened as well. Yeah, you know, there's so many things. I mean, some people, you know, they might look up to me and think that's amazing, but there's so many things that have like got me down over the years, things that haven't happened, you know, but you don't see that. Yeah, there's two sides to it, but yeah, you have got to be strong and not let things get you down. I think you should wake up every morning and think about things that you are blessed with. That's the key.
That's beautiful, man. I think, that's exactly where I think we should end this is, you know, you always want to leave yourself in a place of gratitude, right? Like all of us have goals we're working on. We maybe have frustrations about the way some things are going. But if you always start off in a place of gratitude, that's, I think, setting yourself up the best way possible to succeed.
Mate, it can be really simple, you know. It's like I went to the gym this morning and I can walk, you know, like you've got to be thankful for the simplest things, and then you'll start your day off better. But as simple as that is, it took me a long time to think about things like that. Do you know what I mean? So...
Well, that's beautiful, man. I'm glad you're thinking about it. I'm glad you're doing well now. Yeah, it can definitely always be worse, man. And we've got a lot to be thankful for right now. I'm thankful for this conversation, man. It's great to talk to you.
You too, man. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, take care. Let's talk again. I hope it's not another 8 years before we talk again. But all right, man. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Peace out, man. All right, that's the show. Shout out to Low Steppa. Great to have you on, man. For everybody out there listening, don't forget Low Steppa's new album, Boiling Point. It's out right now. It's incredible. You got to go grab it. You can also grab his new EP on Defected Records, and he's got so much more in store. There's a link in the description of this episode where you can go follow him, check him out, and keep up to date with everything he's doing. You can also follow me at Willy Joy or at Back to Back Pod on all social media, or you can email me directly, backtobackpod@gmail.com. I would also love to have you come join the Back to Back Discord server. That's my chat. That is my hangout. I'm in there all the time, chatting with people, welcoming the new folks who join every day. And look, it's a great community of people. We're talking about music. We're talking about life. We're talking about making music. So if you make music, if you make art, come share it with us, get some feedback, get connected, and just in general, come say what's up. I want to meet you guys. I got to get out of here. I got to go drive a few hours, take my first vacation of the year. Man, I'm really playing this up. It's 2 days at an Airbnb, guys. But, you know, we got to celebrate the little things here, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope by the time this episode drops, you have been refreshed by your weekend. I hope you're feeling good, happy, healthy, sane. I hope the people around you are doing well. I hope you guys are taking care of each other. I hope you're listening to some good music. For Back to Back, this is Willy Joy. Peace.